Right now, we're witnessing history collapse in real time. Over the past week, you've watched chaos unfold. The American president faced humiliation when European officials abandoned a major summit in Switzerland. Japan's financial system shook violently, wiping out massive amounts of global wealth. A federal court stopped White House renovations, leaving nothing but dirt and confusion on the grounds. Then yesterday, massive crowds assembled around the presidential residence demanding change. You probably thought things couldn't deteriorate further, but they did. Early this morning, around 3:15 on Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, President Donald Trump didn't just push boundaries, he obliterated them completely. In an explosive middle-of-the-night message posted online, something experts say future generations will examine as evidence of superpower collapse, the commander-in-chief attacked the European officials who challenged him abroad. This wasn't simple criticism. This wasn't routine name-calling. He asserted complete control over them. Through an angry, rambling declaration written entirely in capital letters, America's leader stated that hidden agreements about Greenland were absolutely genuine and that European defense arrangements amounted to an extortion scheme under his personal command. He described top officials from Germany, France, and Denmark as, these are his exact words, subordinates who pleaded desperately for his military protection. The response came immediately. It was explosive and completely without precedent. For the first time since World War II ended, democratic world leaders released a unified, synchronized rebuke of an American president. This wasn't gentle concern. This wasn't polite disagreement. The official declaration bearing signatures from Britain's Prime Minister, Germany's Chancellor, and France's President included just 3 devastating words that essentially terminated the transatlantic partnership: unacceptable and untrue. Yet words weren't their only weapon. Starting at 8 o'clock this morning, diplomatic representatives from the world's leading democracies have been summoned home from Washington for urgent discussions. Anyone familiar with international relations understands the significance. This signals complete relationship breakdown. America no longer leads the free world. We've become isolated. In today's comprehensive investigation, we'll examine the catastrophic statement that destroyed 8 decades of cooperation overnight. We'll study the alarming legal and defense consequences of Europe's pushback. And we'll reveal the siege mentality consuming a White House now completely disconnected from reality, from its partners, and from its own citizens. The global community didn't simply move past America today. They slammed the door shut entirely. To grasp why international anger runs so deep, we must examine the actual message. This wasn't typical social media commentary. Something far more disturbing emerged. The trigger, as we documented yesterday, was the widespread success of massive anti-administration demonstrations. The president remained confined indoors, monitoring the gatherings, absorbing the ridicule. His pride suffered direct assault. Reasserting authority became essential, proving his dominance felt necessary. Therefore, at 14 minutes after 3 in the morning, he grabbed his device. The message declared, Europe's weak leadership. Pathetic Meta, exhausted Olaf, and tiny Emmanuel believe they can disrespect me. They've forgotten who controls them. I possess documentation. They pleaded desperately for my military support. Greenland belongs to me. The Arctic region is mine. They're merely dependents surviving on American generosity. If they choose confrontation, I'll abandon our defense treaty immediately and allow hostile forces to destroy them, contribute financially, or stay silent. Let's analyze why this represents catastrophic diplomacy. First, subordinates who pleaded desperately. Throughout diplomatic history, you never suggest allies are servants. Criticism about spending is acceptable. Complaints about behavior are normal. But calling elected sovereign leaders subordinates who begged establishes imperial superiority. It destroys their credibility before their own populations. This language carries feudal connotations, a master controlling subjects. By choosing these words, Trump wasn't merely offending them. He questioned the legitimacy of their democratic systems. Second, Greenland belongs to me. He didn't suggest negotiations exist. He declared ownership. This validates European concerns that Trump perceives independent nations as property for acquisition. It confirms fears that America behaves aggressively. It also generates serious legal consequences we'll address shortly. Third, I'll abandon our defense treaty immediately. This constitutes the ultimate threat. NATO's mutual defense commitment forms the foundation of international security. Threatening to allow hostile forces to destroy them, obvious reference to Russia, isn't negotiation strategy. It resembles organized crime intimidation. It communicates to every European capital that their safety depends entirely on one individual's pre-dawn emotional state. When morning arrived in Brussels and London, diplomatic communications exploded with urgency. The president apparently believed this statement would energize his supporters. He imagined it projected strength. Instead, it revealed someone who'd lost understanding of presidential limitations. Europe's reaction wasn't the typical disorganized, scattered criticism. It was coordinated devastation. At 6 o'clock Eastern Time, foreign policy departments from the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, and Japan issued identical simultaneous statements without warning. This never occurs. Typically, such declarations get softened to preserve future cooperation. This one cut like a blade. The content, recent statements from America's president concerning European sovereignty and our security partnership nature are unacceptable and untrue. The United States represents an ally, not a ruler. The Atlantic Partnership involves equal participants, not a protection scheme. We completely reject characterizing our nations as subordinates. And we absolutely deny fabrications regarding Greenland's status. We refuse coercion. We refuse threats. The phrase unacceptable and untrue equals a diplomatic declaration of war. Untrue means the president lies. Unacceptable means the president lacks moral authority. But the most startling signature on that document came from the United Kingdom. For generations, the special connection between America and Britain survived everything. Conflicts, controversies, emergencies. London always supported Washington. Today, Britain's prime minister sided with Europe against the American president. Why? Because Trump insulted the monarchy by suggesting the UK, a nation with immense historical pride, was subordinate. He insulted royalty. He insulted British imperial legacy. The UK recognized that under Trump, no special relationship exists. Only submission remains, and they chose self-respect over financial pressure. This represents geopolitical divorce. Britain has packed its belongings and departed. The Atlantic Bridge has crumbled. The situation worsens. We're receiving preliminary reports from Brussels that Poland and Baltic nations, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, are considering activating NATO consultation protocols. These provisions allow members to meet when security faces threats. Normally, this happens when Russia acts aggressively. Today, they're discussing it because of the United States. They interpret Trump's threat about allowing hostile forces as direct danger to their safety. Consider this reality. NATO countries gathering to discuss protecting themselves from American presidential instability. The alliance's Secretary General reportedly canceled his Washington visit. He's conducting emergency sessions in Brussels. The partnership is disintegrating as we speak. If America can't be trusted to honor mutual defense commitments, then NATO ceases to exist. And if NATO dies, every European nation must develop independent nuclear capabilities. We're observing the beginning of worldwide nuclear weapons proliferation triggered by one social media post. Germany already discusses reviving atomic energy with military applications. Poland requests nuclear sharing arrangements with France. The nuclear protection America provided has been withdrawn by Trump, and now everyone scrambles for alternatives. The catastrophic insult isn't purely political, it's economic. Following the statement, the European Union announced examination of strategic economic relationships. That's diplomatic language for targeted penalties. We already face the Canadian blockade devastating the American heartland. Now Europe threatens targeting the U.S. technology industry. The EU's trade commissioner suggested that if America continues hostile language, Brussels could activate its new anti-coercion mechanism, created specifically to combat economic bullying. They could impose data regulations, technology taxes, and luxury import fees that would devastate Silicon Valley and financial markets. Markets recognize this danger. Technology stocks dropped another 3% this morning. Apple, Google, Microsoft. Corporations dependent on European customers are suffering. The Trump economic discount has become a Trump penalty. Every American retirement account shrinks because the president couldn't resist his phone at 3 in the morning. And remember the Japanese financial crisis. Japan signed the unacceptable and untrue letter too. The Japanese government is enraged. They hold the largest amount of American debt. If they decide to punish Trump by selling treasury bonds, American interest rates skyrocket to 10%. The real estate market collapses. The president wages multi-front economic warfare against his own partners, and he's depleted all resources. Back in Washington, the atmosphere shifted from alarm to conspiracy theories. The massive protests outside the executive mansion have intensified. The demonstrators feel energized by international condemnation. They sense global support. But inside Congress, conversations have transformed. For the first time, credible individuals whisper about constitutional removal procedures. The 25th Amendment's fourth section permits the vice president and cabinet to remove the president if he cannot fulfill official duties. Is he incapable? Constitutional experts on every broadcast today make this argument. Delusions, he imagines agreements about Greenland that don't exist. Danger, he threatens nuclear consequences through alliance collapse via social media at 3 in the morning. Incapacity, he's physically isolated in residence, refusing to work. Compromise, he faces serious financial vulnerabilities and asset confiscation. This isn't just opposition party discussion. We're hearing that traditional establishment Republicans, those who survived internal purges, are terrified. They observe the devastating poll numbers. They watch donors abandoning ship. They see international rejection. They understand that if Trump remains in power another year, their political party might cease existing. Removing him represents the only path to save the organization. Removing him is the only way to stop the disaster. We're monitoring the vice president carefully. J.D. Vance has remained conspicuously quiet. He hasn't defended the message. He hasn't appeared on television. His silence speaks volumes throughout Washington. He's calculating his options. Is it preferable to be the person who saves democracy or the loyalist who perishes with the administration? So what's occurring inside the residence currently? Leaked information suggests scenes resembling classical tragedy. The president feels abandoned by everyone. He feels betrayed by Europeans. I funded their defense. He feels betrayed by wealthy donors. I reduced their taxes. He feels betrayed by voters. I delivered prosperity. He's surrounded by a diminishing circle of yes men telling him what he wants to hear. Sir, the message was powerful. The people love it. The Europeans are simply jealous. This echo chamber of delusion is dangerous. It means he won't back down. He'll escalate. He might actually attempt withdrawing from NATO through executive action. He might try seizing control of the Federal Reserve to print money for his obligations. He might try arresting demonstrators. A trapped narcissist with nuclear launch authority is the most dangerous entity on Earth. And right now, Donald Trump is trapped in every conceivable way. Financially, politically, and psychologically, he's retreated into a mental fortress where he's simultaneously victim and hero, and everyone outside represents an enemy. While the West burns, look toward Asia. Xi Jinping currently hosts a summit with developing world leaders. He isn't posting insults. He's finalizing trade agreements. He's pointing toward Washington saying, observe the disorder, observe the disrespect. China treats you with dignity. The catastrophic insult represents the greatest propaganda victory the Chinese Communist Party ever received. They don't need to defeat America. America defeats itself. By alienating Europe, Trump forces Europe toward increased Chinese commerce. By alienating Canada, he forces Canada to sell resources to China. He's delivering control of the global economy to Beijing without resistance. Chinese state television broadcasts the subordinate message repeatedly. They use it proving America is an arrogant, declining empire. This is how they treat their friends, the broadcasters say. Imagine how they'll treat you. It's devastatingly persuasive. Let's examine deeper the word subordinate. Trump likely chose it because it sounds authoritative, but in Europe it carries specific historical weight. It references feudalism. A subordinate is a servant owing military service to a master in exchange for land. A subordinate possesses no sovereignty, no independence. By using this term, Trump explicitly rejects the concept of independent nations. He's declaring America is the empire and everyone else is territory. This confirms the worst fears of European intellectuals. They've argued for years that America is imperial power disguised as democracy. Trump just gave them the evidence to prove it. This destroys 7 decades of American soft power. We spent billions convincing the world we're partners. He destroyed that investment in 30 seconds. It also alienates the European conservative movement. Even nationalist leaders cannot support an American president calling their nations subordinate. Patriotism in Europe means rejecting American domination just as much as Brussels bureaucracy. Trump alienated his own ideological partners. There's a peculiar legal angle here that hasn't received sufficient coverage. By claiming Greenland belongs to me in written form, Trump might have created legal liability for the American government. If the government officially claims ownership of territory it doesn't possess, it violates international law and the UN Charter. Denmark could technically sue America in the International Court of Justice. America would lose. This would further delegitimize American legal standing internationally. It transforms America into a rogue state in global legal opinion. It gives credibility to the idea that America ignores treaties. If America ignores the UN Charter on Sovereignty, why should Iran follow nuclear agreements? Why should Russia leave Ukraine? Trump just dissolved the rules-based international order with one sentence. We mentioned the anti-coercion mechanism earlier. Let's explain what it actually accomplishes. The European Union passed this legislation in 2023. It allows Brussels to take countermeasures against any country attempting to interfere in member state sovereign choices through economic pressure. Trump's message threatening to abandon defense commitments if they don't pay represents the textbook definition of economic coercion. The mechanism allows the EU to block American investment in Europe, exclude American companies from government contracts, impose fees on American exports without International Trade Organization procedures, restrict intellectual property rights. This is devastating. If Brussels activates this weapon, American corporations lose access to a market of 450 million wealthy consumers. Tesla, Amazon, Facebook, they get excluded. The American economy cannot survive simultaneous trade warfare with China, blockade from Canada, and European economic strikes. It's economic self-destruction. We've reached the point of no return. The catastrophic insult cannot be retracted. You cannot tell the British monarch he's subordinate and then apologize. You cannot threaten to dissolve NATO and then claim you're joking. The trust has evaporated. The world has moved forward. They're constructing a post-American world before our eyes. Europe discusses a continental military force. Asia discusses a Pacific economic zone excluding America. The developing nations are celebrating their opportunity. America stands alone. And we're alone because our leader decided that insulting his partners was more important than leading them. The beacon on the hill has gone dark and locked its gates. As we conclude, the situation continues developing. We're waiting to see if ambassadors actually depart Washington. If they do, it formally ends the Western alliance. We're waiting to see if the vice president breaks his silence. But one thing is certain, the era of American global leadership ended at 14 minutes past 3 this morning. It didn't end with violence. It didn't end with warfare. It ended with a message. Unacceptable and untrue. Those are the words that will be engraved on the memorial of this presidency. Subscribe to stay updated. We're monitoring the State Department and Defense Department. If constitutional removal procedures are invoked, we'll broadcast immediately.